The goal of an effective social movement is to capture institutions, not just gain political power. Everyone knows that political power is the gas in the tank of a social movement, but what do you do when your movement stalls? Just like an effective sports team, when it looks like you're losing, you have to get into your huddle and examine your resources. So remember, we have 7 ingredients in our social movement recipe. First ingredient, great social movements have great charismatic leaders who can motivate the grassroots. If you're losing, maybe it's time to have another rally to activate your base. The second ingredient, our social movement has to have powerful messaging to connect with the public. So when the movement's stalling, maybe it's time to reevaluate the messaging. Third ingredient, independent funding sources are a critical piece of the puzzle. So if our movement is stalling, it might be time to amp up the marketing. Ingredient 4 is super important. The left has a vast infrastructure network, and the school choice movement won't survive without an equally impressive infrastructure system. When the movement stalls, these day-to-day beneficiaries of the movement, they can maintain the momentum while the leadership regroups. These are our private schools, our homeschool co-ops, and the nonprofits that represent the grassroots. Grassroots movements have been the bread and butter of the left's cultural transformation of America. Grassroots movements start at the local level, and they seek to gather political support from the bottom up. Grassroots movements are more sticky because they signal a shift in the culture and voting patterns of the average citizen. The fifth ingredient, the activist class ingredient, is closely tied to the infrastructure network. These people often work for the nonprofits, which means they get paid to shift the culture. The sixth ingredient, and always reliable to change hearts and minds of political actors, that's the power of personal testimony. In the school choice movement, it's the parents and the students that represent the grassroots, as they are who are most directly impacted by failing government schools, and they are our best weapons. When our social movement gets these 6 ingredients right, we're on automatic pilot to get the final ingredient, which is favorable legislation. Remember, the left is not winning by accident. They are winning by design. Today, I'm sitting down with a school choice activist who's on the front line of the legislative battles. She's going to give us an update on some recent legislative victories and a disappointing loss. Let's get into it. I know, guys, it doesn't make a lot of sense that we have to fight this hard just to put parents in the driver's seat, but we do. So, Shannon, you talked about Yes Every Kid and how you guys advocate for families, parents to just be the decider about how their kids are going to be educated. Tell me how you got into this fight.
Sure. So I've been involved in politics and government for, since I started my career. And education freedom and school choice is just something that was always, I was passionate about. I think it sounds like common sense policy, families being in charge of where and how their children are educated. And so I joined Yes Every Kid because that's what they're working on. In over 30 states right now, we're active in trying to advocate and push these policies. And we've seen a lot of success over these past couple of years. And so just really great to work for such an amazing organization that's pushing these policies.
Okay, so when I was reviewing you guys' website, I found that you have these 4 simple pillars. Can you review the pillars for us?
Sure. So for one it's fund every kid. So like I mentioned earlier, that's, any type of policy that allows funding to follow the student. So, an education savings account, a tax credit scholarship, an individual tax credit, a voucher, anything that allows families to take funding and send their child to whatever school they deem fit for their child. Another policy pillar is no more lines. So that's your open enrollment, allowing kids to attend any public school, whether it's, outside their the one that they're zoned for in their zip code. That's something that Kansas passed a couple of years ago, and something that, we're pushing hard in a lot of states, because these policies of zoning children in school districts, we've seen it has come from the early 1900s of redlining, which has kept, racially segregated, economically segregated children out of certain schools. And so we believe that public schools are public goods and should be open for all students. The other one is Learn Everywhere, so allowing kids to, get course credit outside of a classroom. I think we can agree that a lot of our learning happens outside of a classroom, and kids should be able to get credit and do some learning outside of the traditional classroom setting. And then lastly is Education Your Way. So that really just allows families to customize an education that works for them. So if they want to take, a couple credits at home in a homeschool setting, but say they want to take math in the public school setting, that they should be able to do that. Or for instance, something as simple as if you're a homeschool student, but you want to participate in public school sports, you should be able to do that as well.
Correct. So basically, you want to open up the marketplace.
Exactly.
And that's what we have in every other aspect of American life. We have an open marketplace. But for some reason, we got stuck when it comes to K through 12 education. So we're trying to get unstuck. Okay. So right now, Kansas has this tax credit scholarship. How does that work?
Sure. So what it is it allows individuals and businesses to donate to these nonprofit scholarship granting organizations, and they're able to receive a tax credit for their donation. And then these students that qualify for the program, which right now, Kansas, it's 250% of the federal poverty level and under qualify for the program. They can apply for scholarships and then receive scholarships to attend a qualified school. And so right now, I believe it's individuals and businesses can get a 75% tax credit to donate. And then students can, if they want to attend a school that's a qualified school in their area, they can. And so right now, I believe we have about 1,300 students that are in the program in this state. And Kansas just actually expanded the program last year to open it up to some more students. Right. So, which is great progress, but there's a lot more that can be done.
Right, 1,300 students is sort of a drop in the bucket for the whole state. Mm-hmm. But what I'm running up against is a lot of mythology, just complete myths about how these programs work. So, for example, I continuously get confronted with this idea that it's stealing money from the government schools. So are you finding that? Are you having that same conversation?
I mean, those are the arguments that we hear all the time. That it defunds public schools, and that's not what we're seeing. I mean, you look at states like Arizona and Florida who have had education freedom for years. We're not seeing the sky is falling, this argument that the other side is saying that it's going to, drain these public schools, especially rural public schools. We're not seeing that. I mean, I think we can agree that a rising tide lifts all boats, and competition is great, and that's even true in the education marketplace.
Right. And at the end of the day, the metrics are really what's giving us the evidence. And the metrics are that schools are failing. A lot of schools. I just did some numbers on Baltimore where they literally have the bottom 33 schools have 0 students on grade level for reading or math. Chicago just came out with a report. 55 schools have 0 students on grade level for math and reading, neither one of them. So what are the parents supposed to do? What are you hearing from them?
Well, and that's the thing. Parents want options. We shouldn't, trap children in schools that's not working for them. And if your public school is working for you, that's great. I mean, at Yes Every Kid, we are truly agnostic about where a child goes to school. But what we are not agnostic about is who is making that decision. And so, if a public school isn't working for a kid, then that family should have the option to attend a different school. I mean, I think we can agree that every kid is different. And while a public school might work great for one student, another student that might not be the right fit for a multitude of reasons. It's not just academics. We've got to face bullying, all different types of things that might impact a child's learning ability, and reasons why parents might want to take their child and take them to a different school.
Right. So the number one reason that I wanted to talk to you or someone from Yes Every Kid is because I knew you guys were working closely with the legislature. So I wanted to get some good news, what I hoped was going to be good news about some bills that had been in the Kansas House and Senate. Do you have any updates for me on the state of those bills?
Sure. So Kansas this year, there was a bill that would have allowed for an individual tax credit. It would have been a universal tax credit. So a similar program that Oklahoma just passed last year. It would have allowed families who decided to educate their child outside of a public school setting to claim an income tax credit.
Right.
And so that was something we were hopeful for. It passed out of Senate Tax Committee, but unfortunately it just didn't go farther than that. And so I think really in Kansas, what we need folks to get engaged and to call their legislators, because that's the thing. I mean, they need to hear from families that they want this. And we see polling. I mean, I think there was recent Kansas polling maybe a year or so ago that over 70% of parents want education freedom. And so we really need to engage folks and have them, contact their legislators and say that they want this.
Right. And so that's sort of my theme right now is how we build effective social movements. So coming out of the left, you're immersed in social movements. You're immersed in the feminist movement, the pro-choice movement, the civil rights movement, the pro-labor movement, marriage equality movements. They really have mastered how you shift the culture and how you deal with the grassroots. So I'm hoping that that's what I can bring to this side of the table. But right now, whenever I see a bill lose that I was really hopeful for, I know we got to go back and regroup. So there was also some good news that came out of the legislature. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we did see that there is a desire for legislation like this. Last year in Kansas, like I said, there was an expansion of the tax credit scholarship program. They passed legislation allowing homeschool students to participate in public school sports. And then even just 2 years ago, Kansas passed a really strong open enrollment policy that goes into effect this upcoming fall. So students in Kansas, so for instance, if you live in Kansas City, Kansas, but want to attend school in, the Blue Valley, Johnson County District, you can do that now. And so that's great because, I mean, like I said, parks, hospitals, all of these other public goods are open to all. But for some reason, schools are not. And we know that, districts are often, it's how much you can afford to buy a home. And that shouldn't be the case. Your family's socioeconomic status should not keep you from attending a school that works for you. And so we're really excited about that. And that program will open up this fall. And so we're hopeful that parents and families that think that, that would benefit their child really utilize that program.
Yeah, that's a big deal to be able to go from one district to another district for whatever reason. Sometimes it's, maybe one of your relatives lives closer to another school and that's who takes care of you after school. So parents just need flexibility. So school choice adds flexibility to everyone's life. I love having that one because I'm from the Kansas City, Kansas school district, and I know that in general, that's the district that has the lowest test scores, one of the lowest high school graduation rates. So a lot of people that I know, their kids have been locked in for a long time. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about one of my favorite segments of the show that's called School Choice in the News. And that's where I just show you a video about school choice, and then I just get some feedback from you. What are your thoughts on this clip? So in this particular clip, it's only about 40 seconds long. We're going to show the clip, and then Shannon's going to give us some feedback.
Yeah, you look at Joe Biden, the president, he went to private school, sent his kids to private school. Nancy Pelosi, Governor Gavin Newsom, Roy Cooper, governor of North Carolina, he declared a state of emergency over school choice this year, but he sent his own kid to private school. Total hypocrites. It's all across the board, too. It's almost surprising when you don't find that they're hypocrites on school choice. In Texas, where I'm from, the chair of the Texas House Democrats, Trey Martinez Fisher, he sent his own kids to private school, went to private school himself at one point, but then he fights as hard as possible against every day against expanding that opportunity to lower income Texans. It's about time everybody has that choice.
Okay, Shannon, what do you think about that clip?
It's frustrating because it's that mentality of school choice for me but not for thee, and we do in this country have school choice, but if you can afford it, and that should not be the case. Those politicians are saying that I want to take advantage of this, but you know what, all of my constituents, no, you shouldn't have the same opportunities. Education truly has the power to change lives, and we need to open it up so kids have every single opportunity and really they're able to meet and understand their limitless potential as a student and as a child. And I think that's something that is so frustrating because we see this time and time again with legislators and politicians that are fighting education freedom, yet they themselves or their child took full advantage of going to a private school, a homeschool, whatever it may be.
Right. So right now, one of my slogans is hypocrisy is on the ballot. Okay. Not democracy is on the ballot. Hypocrisy is on the ballot. Right now, I've been talking a lot about numbers. Most people don't know this, but the average in America is about 11% of students attend a private school. But 20% of government school teachers send their kids to private schools. Those numbers go through the roof in certain cities like Philadelphia. The numbers are about over 44%. In San Francisco and Oakland, 35% of the public school teachers actually send their kids to private schools. So it's definitely one set of standards for me and another set of standards for thee. Okay, so I am very excited about Yes Every Kid, what you guys are doing. But if people want to get in contact with you, do you guys look for volunteers? How do you guys work with the public?
Sure. So we'll definitely check out our website, yeseverykid.com. We always love to hear from families and their experiences and just kind of their need, because what we do is when we advocate in these state capitals, it's always great to connect with families who these policies might benefit from, because we talk to legislators all the time, but what really makes the most impact is legislators hearing from families and how this would impact them and their children. And we also recently launched a coalition called the No More Lines Coalition, which is really trying to break down those discriminatory district lines. And so we're working with a bipartisan group of organizations in states trying to end these district lines that keep kids out of certain schools. And so that's something that we're really focused on too, heading into the future. And our goal is to really pass these open enrollment policies that truly open up public school for every child.
Okay, so I call those zip codes zip code jail. And you're right, they are rooted in when we had blatantly segregated schools. So people, that resonates with people when I'm talking to them about, it's sort of a myth that the zip code should be determining what school you go to versus what your child's needs are. And so I'm really interested in working with you, because when I hear about a legislative loss, I know we don't give up. We just have to go back, regroup, and we need to look at what tools do we have at our disposal. And a lot of times there's just a disconnect. I feel like there's a disconnect right now where the parents are not connecting with their representatives. So you touched a little bit on parents and what I call the power of personal testimony. So anyone listening to the show, if you're driving, if you're listening, let's start trying to get together and get up and talk to the legislators. Do you guys do anything like that? You bring parents to the legislative offices and talk to have the legislators talk to their constituents?
Of course, and we work with a lot of partner organizations that focus heavily on engaging families and just personal testimony, like you said, because that really makes all of the difference. Hearing how these policies impact a child and a student and a family, and the success stories from a child who had that opportunity truly make all of the difference to these legislators. And I mean, last year we saw 8 states pass universal education freedom.
Exactly.
Alabama joined that list this year, so we're up to 11 states. I mean, like you said, change culture. I really do think policy follows culture,
Exactly.
and these legislators are responding to it. We just need to make sure our folks in Kansas hear them.
Right. We don't want to be, lagging behind right now. So you said you also cover Missouri. There was some good news in Missouri. So what's the update there?
Sure. So Missouri is working to expand the Most Scholars program. So there's a pretty significant ESA expansion that's up this year that we're hopeful for. It also expands charter schools. And so it really would allow so many more students in Missouri to benefit from the program. And so we're super grateful for all of the leadership in Missouri that's helping that move along. And so anybody from Missouri, just make sure you're calling your representative, because right now it's up in the House. It passed the Senate already. So call your House of Representative and tell them that you want this, because that's really important right now.
Okay, so I've already declared school choice a success in America. We have 34 states now that have some type of school choice legislation. So Kansas, you're going to have to get it in gear. Parents, this is your year. Everything is going to be driven by you and what you want. So I just want to thank you, Shannon, for coming in, giving me this update, and hopefully I'll get you back soon and you'll be able to give me some more positive news in Kansas.
Good news. Well, thank you.
Thank you. So guys, we've been talking about what it takes to build a successful social movement. Legislative action is one of the pieces of the puzzle. We're not going to get anywhere because that's the gas in the movement. So we're going to need some help. I'm going to be posting updates every other week to talk to you about what we need to do next. What's the status of school choice in America? Tune in and like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.